Mhm. So,
literally can't follow a star and walk
so,
towards it.
so I did a little research and talked to some a wise man about all this, and the wise men were coming from the east because of Daniel, the book of or
Yeah.
Daniel, who with
Hmm.
Nebuchadnezzar was a seer. Remember back in the day, he was a seer interpreting dreams. And
Hmm.
at
Oh
that
yeah.
point, he gave these uh, he put it out there that there was a Messiah coming and to look for the signs, et cetera, ahead of time. So these guys have been sitting there waiting with this prophecy coming, and when they seen the star, they knew what to do because of Daniel back in the days of Nebuchadnezzar. See,
Hmm.
so now that would kind of make sense because why would they just show up? You're talking months and maybe a month of travel to get where you gotta go to bring these gifts. Now we don't know how many because apparently that wasn't important. What was important were these items because whatever the items were, they stuck through and they're in every single Bible. Basically, the
Hmm.
items have not changed. The story around them has faltered here and there. Is there 5 guys, 3 guys, 12 guys? Who knows? Apparently, that was not an important fact, but the 3 items were the well, you got the gold, and Lucky is right. Gold is for leadership. That's for being the king. You're right, leadership. Frankincense is spiritual. That's for being the spiritual leader. And then myrrh is a death and embalming,
Hmm.
because that same myrrh that was given to him when Jesus was being killed, they gave. Oh, let's see here. They gave a. I got it in my notes here, but apparently, oh, okay. In Mark 15:23, Jesus offered wine with myrrh in it before to Jesus before the crucifixion as a painkiller.
Hmm. Hmm.
Myrrh
Yeah.
is also used to anoint kings. So it's used in your death and the of your beginning of your reign and the death of your reign. Put it that way. Hmm. So that's kind of where I went with that, and so that's why we have these guys going there, bringing these items. They're symbolic of what is to come. It's trying to tell you these things are going to happen in the future,
Yeah, and
and
by using these story elements,
mm-hmm,
they're conveying the impression that this new king or whatever, he's going to be a king, and he's going to be spiritual, but he's going to be mortal.
yes,
Right? That's a
and
foreshadowing.
mm-hmm, and where are they all headed?
Obviously west if they came from the east,
Oh,
right?
yes, yes, they're heading west, and but what town are they going to?
Bethlehem, house of bread,
That's
literally.
Yes, house of bread. That
Hmm.
is so right. So you got the house of bread, which
Hmm.
is so ironic, right?
Yeah.
Because um so then where was Jesus born? And we're gonna, here's the wise men again.
Well,
I gotta get my
house again, house of bread, that could be interpreted as bakery, right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
The
It could be
bakery.
interpreted lots of ways. Okay, so here's Jesus. They're getting ready for, the wise men are coming. Here's Jesus in the manger. This isn't the manger. They wouldn't have been in a wooden manger. All of this is wrong. You wouldn't have
Sure.
had wood and salt. This is a European setting with Eastern Middle Eastern people put in it.
Hmm.
It is kind of hilarious because everywhere you look, it keeps showing you the same things. Uh, you know, why
Hmm.
would you have a big wooden structure in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it
Well,
makes no sense.
it's in the middle of nowhere too, because remember they went to the city of Joseph's birth, which was packed. All the hotels are full, and they go, okay, I can stay where the animals stay, which was next door, not in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, this is real. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, they
weird
wouldn't
picture.
have. Those animals are quite valuable to those people. That was what constituted a large portion of their wealth. So they wouldn't have kept them in the middle of nowhere. They would have kept them
Yeah,
close by their homes.
right.
Mm-hmm. Uh, man, oh crap! I think I got this. Okay, so here is I'm gonna. Sorry, I should have had this up earlier, but we're gonna go with this. This is the area, Mount of Olives area, and look at this here is just this is a plantation everywhere around it. You don't see trees. There are no trees to be had.
Yeah, they're kind of rare in that part of
Yes,
the world. Yeah,
you don't. You know this is the biggest tree thing I could find.
yeah. Back then, like Lebanon was the number one supplier of wood,
Yes.
even to the ancient Egyptians.
Okay, and this is the city here. I'm going to do this. Sorry, I'm trying to blow it up as best as I can. The thing. So you got this. This is the city Bethlehem, and
It's
as
all
you can,
stone.
yeah, it's all stone. Where's the manger? You see the
Hmm.
manger here? Look at they got some tents. Where? Hey people, I'm looking for the manger.
And
Here's Joseph
actually,
and Mary with their little mule over here, and they're walking through it. Where's my manger?
and actually, a lot of families, at least in medieval Europe, they would have like the bottom floor reserved for the animals, and the
Hmm.
top floor was for the humans, because the
Yes.
animals would kind of provide a layer of insulation because they do heat up the space a little bit, so that they wouldn't have to heat their apartment up above so much, and also they had control over them to keep them from being stolen.
Yes. Oh
They
yeah.
literally had them under one roof, but they didn't like live with the animals like some people think. They had them just downstairs
Yes. Yes. They would have them downstairs,
at the
like you
ground
said,
level. At the
ground
ground
level.
level, not below ground level, because a lot of animals have trouble like walking downstairs, not
Hmm.
necessarily upstairs. Like a horse can walk upstairs, but getting him to walk downstairs is kind of difficult.
Absolutely. I know. Lucky knows too. He's had horses, and yeah, get them to go down. It's not as easy
Yeah,
as to make them go up.
yeah, I know this for a fact because there was an incident where I used to live where they were some drunk people, and for Christmas they got the guy a horse, and he
Hmm.
lived in a high-rise apartment, so they got the horse up the stairs like 14 stories up, and they
Oh.
showed him the horse, and he was like, "Wow, great! Okay, well, lead him back outside." Well, he wouldn't go, so they had to the firefighters had to get a crane and take the horse out through the window and
Oh
get him
my.
down safely. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
so I know that. So
um, yeah, I'm just laughing. They got people in chat here. Chloe and Pamela Jean, Trey. We got Cetarian's son, Scotty Boy. Thank you all for being here. Mary Wins, F Kitty. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Let's see. I think I got everybody. But anyway, um, as we go through this. Okay, so where was Jesus born? Then I mean, where's
Well,
where's
see,
the
at the same time, they say they call him Jesus of Nazareth. Like, so which is it, Bethlehem or Nazareth?
yeah? So here's
And they
here's
also
what
say
the
he shall be called a Nazarene.
mm-hmm. And then of course this is a manger from that age, made of stone, hollowed out. So if there was such a thing as him being in the manger, it would have been in something like this.
But that's a feeding trough.
It's a feeding trough, well, which is a manger, but it would have
Hmm.
been made of stone or rock or clay
Hmm.
or whatever it is. It would have been made like this because you wouldn't spend your precious wood on making a trough that the animals could chew up and eat or
Hmm.
destroy, and wood was expensive, you know. But of course,
True.
if you lived in this era, like this picture here, doesn't this this seems so out of place? Look, not a tree for miles except this palm tree here, but you built this big, beautiful wooden structure.
This is exactly what we used to have when I was a kid. My
Mhm.
grandparents had one exactly like this. And I
Mhm.
actually own the baby Jesus because all the parts were lost from this except for the baby Jesus. And I
Mm.
still have the baby Jesus because everyone was lost. And no one knows where the rest of them are. Even the manger, the thing's huge.
Really? Mm.
Yeah, we had something similar to that, but also it was a Warner Brothers version, just like this thing here, like a wooden, like rustic looking Northern European structure. But yeah, even in Northern Europe, they wouldn't be keeping them, in a separate house like that. No.
No. Yeah.
No.
And this if anybody believes this, it's so out of place. Here's your wise men showing up going, "Oh, look, the baby Jesus. We traveled for so long on our camels, and we got to this place called Bethlehem, and this is what Bethlehem looks like. It's in the middle of the desert, nowhere, I mean,
And
come on.
yeah, the interesting discrepancy that arises here is the fact that neither Bethlehem nor Nazareth were actual towns at the time that this was supposed to have happened.
Uh-huh.
That Bethlehem only
Oh, yeah.
became a city like 100 years after these events allegedly happened. So because all the Gospels and everything that was written about 2 centuries after the Common Era, and it was clearly a symbolic story written by the Romans, and it was designed to control the narrative in Israel because that was their most problematic province. They were constantly rebelling against Roman rule. They didn't want to pay their taxes,
Yep.
so they decided to, use kind of a sneaky tactic and give them their own religion. Okay, we're going to make it so that the main character is a Jewish guy, and he's going to be born in poverty conditions. Okay, yeah, sure. That was designed to spread among the lower classes, and that's what it did later on when it spread to Rome. It spread first and foremost to the lower classes. And I would postulate that the spread of Christianity was one of the things that brought Rome down, because depending on which historian you ask, it collapsed around the 300s, 400s, right? Shortly after it was instituted as an official religion, which would have been 325 AD, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, and why? One of the characteristics of a culture going downhill is the fact that they started adopting like ghetto culture. And this was a ghetto religion. It was designed to appeal to the lower classes just, by virtue of the fact that he was born in like an animal manger, right? It was designed to appeal to the lower classes. Like, oh yeah, the rich man can't get. It's easier for a rich man to pass through the eye of a needle than it is to get to heaven, and stuff like that. Or the resurrection of Lazarus, or uh, these other parables that pop up in the gospel, where like the people with the money are you know, they're not saved, but the poor, blessed are the poor, for they shall inherit the earth. The Sermon on the Mount. So
Mm-hmm.
that's this scene right here. This is what led to one of the things that led to the downfall of Rome, and we're seeing that even today in the United States. We're seeing more and more like more of the ghetto culture infiltrating the mainstream, and even the elites are using ghetto expressions, coarse terminology, or things like ripped up jeans or tattoos, or things that were traditionally only associated with the lower classes are now becoming mainstream.
That is so right, so right. Yeah, because it's just whatever they put out there as a narrative.
Hmm.
Speaking of being in poor, um, Luke in Luke mentioned the manger 3 times in his story. Why? Because the manger would mean that it was a humble birth,
That's
giving
what
the
I'm.
character that he's poor and humble.
Mhm.
Bethlehem was the house of bread. Jesus was the food. Why was he in the manger? Because he was the food. His body is the bread, and his blood would be the wine. And so that being, the symbolization of the wine or the bread being in the town, house of bread, him being in the manger is, what do things do when you're in the manger? You're eating,
Mhm.
So his body being in the manger is the bread waiting to be eaten.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's so weird, when you start thinking about all these symbolizations. Okay, so there's a church built over the spot where Jesus was apparently born, and they have an altar there, and they made this big star, and there it is. Now you've
Mhm.
seen the spot where it all happened thousands of years ago.
Yeah. Well,
um,
it's also the thing with the issue with the date. You know, some say that it wasn't the 25th of December. It was the eve of the 24th of December, the 21st of December, August 18th. We have all these dates postulated, but
well,
it most likely corresponds with the winter solstice, which happens
we're
on the 21st of December.
we are going to get to this December thing in a few minutes here. I got some other stuff here we're going to get through. I want to show everybody about where Bethlehem is. If people, I'm sure they don't know where it is, because most people can't even point out their own home on a map, for God's
True.
sakes, right? Okay, well, and you got two different locations, kind of Luke and Matthew, how things go. But these pictures are more to see where Bethlehem is. And if we can point it out, Bethlehem is right here. There
Oh, I
you
see.
go.
Yeah,
And
right,
then,
close to
if,
the Dead Sea.
yeah, and if you look real hard, you can see in the corner here, this is Gaza right here. Gaza
Ah,
that they've been talking about in the news so much.
yeah,
This is the Gaza. Where'd it
Strip.
go? Yeah.
So wouldn't that be actually closer to the West Bank?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it
yeah.
is. Yeah,
Isn't that crazy?
or
So I
even
got
in
a,
the West Bank.
I got a map. I got a map. Uh, and let's do this.
Oh, you're
Let me
right.
blow it
Yeah,
up.
it is in the West
Here,
Bank.
here's Gaza, and
Mm-hmm.
there's Jerusalem,
Mm-hmm.
and Bethlehem should be here somewhere.
It's right by that red teardrop.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and there's Gaza right there.
yeah, yeah.
So people, are wondering. Here's the Gaza Strip everybody's talking about, which
Mm-hmm.
isn't too far from all of this other stuff going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of
Interesting. I never knew
very
that.
interesting. Yeah, you don't really look at this until it's in the news, and you start looking at a map, and you're going, "Holy cow! All these
Hmm.
famous places are right
And
here."
it's interesting that Hebron is also in the West Bank. And Hebron, that's where like all the main Jewish prophets are buried.
Uh huh.
Everybody from Moses down to I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
all the patriarchs are buried there too.
Hmm.
And it's not pronounced Hebron, it's pronounced Hebron.
Okay. Hebron, Hebron.
Hebron.
Yeah, we got a Hebron over here. We call Hebron, but
Hmm.
they make bricks over by me
Hmm.
at that place. It's kind of interesting. They don't really make too much stuff out west here, but they do make bricks there. Let's see. And what else do I got here? Look at this. Okay. Now we're going to talk about something very interesting.
Yes, this is interesting.
I knew you'd find.
Tammuz.
I knew you were going to wait for this one.
Hmm.
um, Okay, the cult of Tammuz centered around two yearly festivals, one celebrating his marriage to the goddess Inanna, and the other lamenting his death at the hands of demons from the netherworld. Okay, now here's a trick question for you, and I couldn't really get it. I seen it on several videos, but I couldn't find it on in writing. But the church that was that where Jesus has his birth. Where'd it go? Come on. Click one, and something else comes up. This one. Okay, so the church where this is located is also where, before this church was built, was also the temple of Tammuz, or whatever it's name. Tammuz.
Yeah.
It was also, it was the cult. It was Saint Helena, and was a cave manager. Cult of the god Tammuz was in the same spot where Jesus was born.
Yeah. An ancient Babylonian holy place. Yeah, it figures.
Coincidence. What a strange coincidence.
Yeah. Here's a thing about Tammuz. We can find out. It's just like I said, I'm just pointing all this stuff out. You people, if you don't believe me, go out and do your own research, because this was quite interesting when you start digging it up. There's Tammuz, idols from there, him and Inanna. And then you got, here's Tammuz. Did he really exist or not?
Yeah, he's kind of reminiscent a bit of like the Egyptian pantheon, right? Because he's got that crook, or what is that he's holding, and he's got those his hands in that characteristic position.
Looks like a spear or a shovel, and then the something else here. Okay, so we're going to go to this, and because I knew we'd all have lots of questions. He's a Mesopotamian religion god of fertility, embodying the powers for new life in nature. In the spring, the name Tammuz seems to have been derived from Akkadian form Tamuzi, based on early Sumerian Damu-Zid, the flawless young, which in later standard Sumerian became Damuzid or Damuzi. The earliest known mention of Tammuz is in texts dating to the early part of the early dynastic third period, 2600 to 2334 BC. But this cult probably was much older, although the cult is attested for most of the major cities of Sumer in the 3rd and 2nd millennia BC. It is centered in the cities around the center steppe area, for example, Bad Triberia.
Bad Tibira.
Okay, I'm bad at it. Where Tammuz was the city of God. As shown by most common epitaph, Simpad, shepherd of Tammuz, was essentially a pastoral deity. His father, Enki, so we're really going back there, is rarely mentioned. And his mother, the goddess Dutur, was the personification of the ewe, which is a sheep. His own name, Damuzid, and two variant designations for him, Ahmad Ga, or mother's milk. Oh, ain't that something? And Ulu, multiplier of pasture, suggests that he actually was the power for everything that a shepherd might wish for. Hey, a shepherd. What did Jesus do? He's a shepherd of men.
Yes, and don't forget, the shepherd's job is not just to protect the sheep, but at the very end of their lives, he's the one that leads them off to slaughter.
That's right.
But also, the shepherds were the lowest rung of society. They were the outskirts, so they were the low. So now you have the people that Jesus, worked with or lived with, the lowest rung. You're right. It says, hey, you lower people, come to our religion, and it empowers the lower people against, the high and mighty, powerful
This is true.
priests.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, that's true. Because, you don't need any qualifications to be a shepherd. All you got to do is be able to stay awake and, be able to see. That's it. There is no shepherd school or shepherd training.
Well, yeah, exactly. Let's go on here. When the cult of Tammuz spread to Assyria in the 2nd and 1st millennia BC, the character of the god seemed to have changed from that of a pastoral to that of an agriculture deity. the text suggests that the Syrian, and later among the Sabines, Tammuz was basically viewed as a power in the grain, dying when the grain was milled. And of course, it
See,
goes
the fact
on
that they
about
say that
Jews.
this religion dates back to earlier than the second millennium BC, or and that his father was Enki. Well, from genetic evidence that we have as to like when all these genetic modifications were performed on humanity, this Enki guy who was in charge of the genetic manipulation program, he was most likely active around 200,000 years ago.
Hmm.
Not like
Yeah.
4.5, 5,000 years ago at the time of the alleged time of the pyramids. Again, the timelines are all off. A lot of this stuff is a lot older because just if you look at the not just the Babylonian kings list, but the Egyptian kings list, that's replicated many times and overlapping with the Babylonian one, that goes back 300 to 360,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's all goes back a lot farther than
mhm.
we're kind of let
Yeah,
on.
definitely,
You know.
definitely, because even if you look, if you've ever delved into like the Akkadian language, which was the
Mhm.
most popular dialect of the Babylonian, ancient Babylonian or Sumerian, it's advanced as hell. I mean, they had I don't know how many different cases. They had like 8 different cases, whereas English only has three. And the writing system was quite advanced. You could say that that was a digital form of writing something down where it was like not subject to interpretation, where it was black and white, literally.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
where their writing system was the equivalent of what we have today with ASCII, right?
Mhm.
So it was standardized, and plus you could replicate it using commonly available things you could find in nature, which was clay, right, and a
Yep.
reed. That's it. That's all you needed, and you could write down in digital format,
Wow.
something that
They
could be
they were
transcribed onto a computer today.
wow. They were way ahead. They
Yeah,
were way ahead.
they were.
Yeah, they were. And what? How did they see? That's why I keep saying that the people back in the day really had they had it going on. They were really smart compared to what we are today. And how did we get so dumb in a way? I mean,
We got dumb because of things like AI and Google. Google is actually making us stupider instead of smarter, I think, because with all this information at your fingertips, you lose the necessity for acquiring skills like a good memory, or for all I know, even common ordinary reasoning.
yeah, um, yeah, I
Rice and
agree.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, they also help to domesticate the wild grasses into things like rice and grains. Yes. Yeah, good
Hmm.
point.
Yeah, and that's what it's talking about here. They were doing the celebrations, but it goes on. It was talking about the incarnation of God's magically fertilized all nature for the year. So basically, then celebrations in March or April. What happens? Mark the death of the god. What
Mhm.
happens in March or April?
That's spring.
Well, that's Easter. That's when Jesus
Yes.
gets killed.
Easter.
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know and the death of the god also seemed to perform because of the seasons. Here it goes on, slaying, and it goes on. Bodies appear to have been symbolized as a symbol of vegetable matter, variety of foods. Body, basically saying his body is becoming some sort of food. Oh my gosh, symbolism according to Jesus there. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Here's a myth telling he had a dream preceding his death and how the dream came true despite all his efforts to escape. Doesn't that sound something like the slaying
Ishtar.
of Jesus too? He knew what was going to happen, but yet he couldn't escape. You know, and so forth and so on. But eventually, he was a fertility god. Da, 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 da. I'm trying to
And
read this.
that's where you get the symbolism of the rabbit laying the egg, because
Yep.
that was actually Ishtar. And Ishtar, that's like a dialectic variant of Inanna.
Yes. Yeah. So I just thought
Mhm.
this was It was really
And that's
interesting.
and Ishtar. That's possibly where you get the Hebrew word Isha meaning woman, right?
Hmm. Okay, now I got a few zingers. I don't know if I know. Yeah, we'll go with this one first. Zingers for you. Baby Jesus. Notice the pagan symbol for sun worship.
Mm-hmm,
The
mm-hmm,
sun's rays. T for Tammuz. Tammuz,
mm-hmm,
who was born in Babylon on December 25th. How
mm-hmm.
coincidental.
Yes.
Notice the holy, or the
Mm-hmm,
holly for the holy, or the holly
mm-hmm,
god, Saturn, whose birthday was also
mm-hmm.
December 25th. Uh,
There's a couple of gods whose this birthday is on December 25th. He's not the only one. I believe.
there. Oh, yeah.
I think. Shit. What was his name? Priapus, or a couple of them were born on December 25th.
The first sun god of Babylon was
Man,
Nimrod, born on December 25th. And of course, when you see the baby Jesus, he has the sun
son.
rays coming.
Yeah.
The T, the symbol of Tammuz, god of Babylon, born on December 25th. The
Mm-hmm,
T, which, turned into the cross. I mean,
mm-hmm.
just a little bit of, you take an onk and you make it and people forget after a while. Okay, we're going to go with this stuff. Here's Nimrod, Samatris, I guess,
Semiramis.
Semiramis. Okay, she's the moon, he's the sun. And here's Tammuz, born December
Yeah.
25th again. This is the wife and mother of Nimrod. So the entire earth is filled with the religious ideas that originally started with the Babylonian leaders Nimrod, Tammuz, and Semiramis.
And
So
that's exactly this replicated in the Egyptian trinity, which would be Isis, Isis, Osiris, and Horus, right?
yeah. Hmm.
Where, yeah, where
And
she's like his sister and his wife at the same time.
and look at here, Nimrod defied ancient Nubidian artifact. Look at that. Looks like Santa, Nimrod
Hmm,
and Santa trees. Merry
hmm.
Christmas, people. Look at him. I don't know if that's real. Nimrod's birthday, December 25th. Long beer, reindeer,
Reindeer.
Christmas tree. Well, he took some of the pagan tradition, but who knows? Maybe they were still copying some of this stuff from
Hmm,
whatever. But
hmm.
as you go through, and of course, here is
And
um,
of course, he's got the wings. Nimrod has the he's got the wings. In modern tradition, the Santa's sleigh and the reindeer, they fly in the air, right?
that's right. This is the one I should have done this one earlier. This was Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Nebuchadnezzar had the dream in his mind, was troubled, and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians, which would have been the magi instead of
Yeah.
magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what they had dreamed. And they came in and stood before the king. King 3, he said to them, I haven't had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means. Okay, well, that's where Daniel came in and told him what it was and became the number one seer. And
Hmm.
so, like I said, he kind of upped his game there, and that's why we have, he would have been telling the Magi what's going on because he became the leader, because I'm the seer, and he would have said, hey, there's a star. When you see the star, you got to load up and go.
Kind of like Moses, right? Moses also
Yeah.
was like a magician and a seer, and also became like the Pharaoh's number two man,
Hmm. Yeah.
interpreting his dreams, right? About the 7 years of plenty, the 7 years of famine.
Yep. Yep. But like I said, I seen a lot of this stuff, and okay, so the Essenes were um, kind of instigators in all this. The Essenes believed that Isaiah's prophecy was coming true in their time, which we don't know why, but they were convinced that the end of the world was approaching and that Jehovah had sent the Messiah. So they propagated this and I haven't dug into it that far. So, but anyway, these
Yeah,
things were
apocalyptic cults have been around since before recorded history. I mean, the oldest
yeah.
known inscription about the end of the world being, you know, in a couple of years dates back to 3,600 years before Common Era, right? BC.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
even as far back as 5,600 years ago, people were saying, "Oh, it's getting so bad, it's going to end. It's all going to end." In other words, it's a thought that's been around for a really long time.
The Magi would have came from Babylon. They wouldn't
They
have come
say
from
from the
Egypt.
east, right? It's not
Yes.
exactly stated. They could have been from anywhere, Kazakhstan, India.
Hmm. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
But it's just very coincidental that all of these people had
And
25th birthday.
sorry to interrupt.
So,
They couldn't
go
have
ahead.
come from Egypt because Egypt is to the west.
Ah, yes. Yes, exactly. Egypt's to the west. Okay. Yeah. So anyway,
Or
the point
southwest.
southwest.
Southwest, yeah.
The way they were
But
coming
west,
over.
yeah,
Hmm.
land wise, west, all west because the land, because
Sure.
a lot of
If you
stuff
would
back
have
then.
had, yeah, west,
Well, and then the thing
overland,
is, if they were coming, why would they come across land? Wouldn't they just get on a boat and sail around? You know,
most
they would have
most
come.
travel happened by boat, and even to this day, it's the cheapest mode of transportation that we know of.
But
Yeah,
it's also
fast.
toughest because a lot of boats were lost.
Yeah.
Rocky shores, you had the experts. So
Hmm.
Hmm.
Piracy.
cheapest, yeah, it depends, who you're going through, where you're going, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Who you trust,
Uh,
depends who you trust. The
and the,
caravan or the guy riding the boats.
and then well, and that's the next thing too is these wise men or whoever they were, their entourage, they were coming on camels in the desert when they could have just, did they
Hmm.
cross the Dead Sea? Did they just, you've seen the city? Most of those people are just walking or traveling with a mule. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't around back then, but would they have had horses, mules, donkeys, or camels? Which
I
would have been
think they
the
would have had horses because the horse actually came from the steppes of Central Asia, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't brought to the Americas until the so-called New World discovery of Columbus. So
Well,
that's where horses come from.
Yeah.
that's actually the funniest story I have is because the only horse we ever had, and I've had dozens of horses in my life, only one who would actually walk downstairs was an Arabian horse. It was a cross Arabian quarter
Oh,
horse, but she was also terribly intelligent, where she could open her own stall. She could open things in ways that we never to this day could figure out how she could open doors.
Wow.
They locked from the outside, but she knew how to shake the door in the right rhythm that would, and still to this day, we had to double lock her stall with, impossible ways for it to move. Um,
Interesting.
but again, only horse to go downstairs was an Arabian horse who actually was painfully intelligent.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's very surprising. Yeah.
Well, you needed a smart horse because also horses are the kind of things where me as a kid, you're riding a horse and you're trying to barrel race stuff like that. You fall off, and some of those damn horses would complete the loop without you on it. While in
Yeah.
a rate with the Arab horse, even though she was terribly smart, if you fell off, she would stop immediately
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
she knew we're a team. Well, quarter horse knew, wait, I have a plan. I got to do my thing. It's
mhm.
so weird. Horses just every breed of horses can be fun and it can also be challenging.
Well,
Mhm.
see, the disadvantage of using camels is that camels are very difficult to get on and off of.
Yeah, camels also don't
Impossible.
care. Yeah, they'll do
Yeah,
what the hell
they
they
also,
want.
and the only way you can get on a camel is by having him sit down, right?
Hmm.
Once he sits down, you get on, and you got to hold on really, really tight, otherwise you are coming off. And same thing goes when he sits down, so you can get off. You got to really hold on, otherwise you are flying somewhere, either forward or back. So that's why most people in the Levant actually use donkeys because as opposed to horses, donkeys have a much calmer disposition.
Hmm.
They don't
Mhm.
spook as easily, and also, sometimes they're used in conjunction with raising horses, where if a horse is like too recalcitrant, they'll like tie him to a donkey, so that afterwards when he calms down, he will acquire like a hatred of donkeys instead of a hatred of the humans, right? That did this to him. So yeah, they would have used donkeys if anything
Yeah. Yeah.
as pack
Probably.
animals and not camels, because
Mhm.
they're like I said, they're a difficult animal to take care of.
Yes. Yes. Difficult. And if they're bringing stuff or a caravan, because a king or some, well, like they're saying, or magi, they probably wouldn't have traveled alone. There would have been an entourage with a bunch
Hmm.
of stuff. And if somebody was riding anything, they would have probably been riding horses or
Hmm.
having a donkey, or something like that. You're right. The
Yeah, they would
help
have
would
to
have
have like
been
at
walking.
least at least supplies, right? At least
Yes.
water, because if they're traversing the desert, that's the number one thing you need is water and some food, and
Hmm.
possibly even firewood.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so like I said, yeah, firewood. Yeah, you got to bring your firewood. You ain't
Hmm.
finding it in the
Oh,
desert.
yeah.
And I
You know
imagine it
what they
was
use
more.
in the desert?
Huh.
They use what they call algor, which is dried animal dung.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they would use that out on the plains here.
And
The
it's,
Indians would
I
they would
kid you
collect
not,
the.
it's Al Gore.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny that Al Gore. We say that all the time,
Yeah,
and he's in charge of climate change. Good
he
deal.
invented the internet.
Yes, and he invented the internet. Thank you, Al Gore. We get a good laugh out of that. Mm. Well,
But see, the
I
other thing is, if you were back in those days, if you were a true king and you were traveling outside your realm, you probably wouldn't wear the garb. You probably wouldn't dress up like a king. You'd
Hmm.
probably
yeah.
want to pass yourself off as like, oh, I'm just a farmer.
Well, either that or you were going to have an entourage that was well armed,
Yeah,
and then you'd be
yeah.
going into that city. See that you're right, because if you're going into that city with a military force, that would alerted everybody that, hey, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, somebody's coming over here to take over a city. You're right. They would have been very in trying to be very inconspicuous.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe they were just wise men, uh, you know, uh, hide in the shadows kind of deal, being the gray man. and
Hmm.
Well,
and that
it,
was it.
it depends on which translation. They were kings in one translation, they were magicians in another, and they were wise men in a third. Depending on which translation you go with,
Hmm.
that's what these guys were. And again,
Mm,
none of them said three, but
Hmm.
yeah,
um, being kings is much later. Actually, I hear when I read.
yeah,
Mostly, it's just magicians, astrologers, uh,
yes.
you know,
I
and wise
I
can cover both.
It's
I
interesting.
agree.
This might not be even related, but my girlfriend, she decided to set up like an Advent wreath in her living room, right? And she got it wrong. She put up like four red candles, but in the Catholic tradition, it's three red candles and one white candle. And the order that you light them in is the first week you light the red candle, second week a red candle, the third week you light the white candle, and the fourth week you light another red candle. So, and I'd be interested in hearing opinions as to like what's the significance of that, because you also have like three candles, right? Three candles that are red and one that's white.
Hmm. Minority Reporter says, I wonder who sent them. Like I said, that was Nebuchadnezzar. Uh, he was.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. How would the news of that have spread in the ancient world?
Well, no, it would have been. It wouldn't have been because the book of Daniel was way before all of this, and he was given those prophecies. He was a seer. He wasn't there for 2 days. He was seeing things, and
Hmm.
he probably became the head guy and said, "Hey, when this event comes up in 50, 100 years or 200 years, you will know when there's a star. You better get going."
Hmm.
It'll be off to to the west, and you better head out, and this is what he probably said, this is what you need to take,
Yeah, but again,
and get yourself over there.
those are directions that wouldn't work really, because all the stars move the same way from the east to the west. So they wouldn't have been following a star in like any of the cardinal points. They would have been very specific and said, okay, if you see a comet in the constellation of Sagittarius that's moving towards the constellation of Cancer or Leo, then that's your signal, right?
Yeah.
But
and,
as
and,
to
it, and
guiding
it
them
might
to the location, who
it might
knows?
it might have been something like that, because obviously it was a really bright star that we don't have today. So
It was
it could have been a comet.
if it was a real thing, it would have been only a comet. Only a comet would have been noticed as being something out of the ordinary. It wouldn't have been an ordinary star that's known to us.
Yes. Otherwise, we point it out today and say that
Yeah,
that's the
that's
star.
that's
Because
yeah.
now it's not there anymore.
hmm Yeah.
And that's why it was special.
hmm
So like I said, he must have gave them hints and said, these are the things to look for when you see that. Because if I was giving somebody hints, what would I do? I would say, it's going to be something out of the ordinary, but you'll know when you see it.
And there's passages in the Bible that are like remarkably specific in this respect, in terms of like astronomical designation of a specific time. Like in the book of Revelation, it describes like the whore of Babylon, that she's got 7 stars at her feet, and a lion on her to her left, and this to her right. Well, that's describing a picture of the sky, actually, and that could have only happened at this particular date. So yeah, it does get specific in terms of astrological symbolism and dating. But in this respect, I don't think that's relevant, because, like I said, the whole New Testament, or I should say the whole Gospels and everything, that's made up by the Romans.
Yes. Yeah. A lot. Like I said, that you're trying to find things. Why didn't they write more about it if it was such a big deal? And
hmm
so coinciding from what my research had done, that I did some today, was that after this thing with Herod and Jesus and everything, the Romans basically soon afterwards, demoted the Herod clan and moved
hmm
that thing to Syria, and then all of that Jerusalem and everything broke up into little parts, and basically they were having civil war all over the place. It was,
hmm
really
Sure,
bad.
yeah,
If the story is true, Jesus didn't bring peace; he brought war.
and he even said so.
'Cause
I didn't come to bring peace. I came to bring a sword, right? And if you
yeah,
don't have a sword, sell your cloak and get one. And
yeah,
you could say that it, that was preceded by like the Maccabean revolts, which were extremely bloody, and a whole bunch of revolutions afterwards. Because don't
yes,
forget, in 80 AD, they somehow managed to burn the temple to the ground. I don't know how you managed to do that if it's made of stone, but they sure did it,
yeah, yeah.
and scattered
It's
all the stones.
Yeah, and see, that's a part I'm thinking, man, like these places with these big temples and things, and they have these huge blocks of stone. Who goes and rips those things down? I mean,
Yeah,
you're going to have hundreds of men trying to pull those blocks down, and
but
you're going
that's
what
a
the only
huge effort.
yeah, and if you're fighting a war, you don't get your men to start pulling blocks down, maybe one or two or something like that, to just
hmm
but you don't
Yeah,
not.
because something doesn't make sense. Because how do you destroy something as huge as Solomon's temple and leave only one wall, where even that one Western Wailing Wall
Mhm.
is huge?
Yeah. Was there more afoot than they let us know? Because
hmm
it's just like the pyramids. How come nobody's destroyed them? But yet you go out into the desert and there's other pyramids out there that look like somebody took big chunks out of them. Now,
Yeah,
who goes and spends their time taking those big chunks out and scattering the stones, you know,
and
in a quarter mile away?
exactly.
Nobody.
And why does the so-called sand of the Sahara or around the pyramids reminds you more of construction rubble than anything else? Or you
Yeah.
got stones of different sizes, sharp stones, really sharp stones, it all over the place. So no, something doesn't add up.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Something. Yeah. There was more going on than
And
what.
like I was saying, the New Testament was written to manipulate the Jews of that time into submission, but the Old Testament was written for manipulative purposes as well. It was
Mhm.
all mind control. It was okay, you people are special. This God made a covenant with you and nobody else. Uh, so that was designed for like the opposite purpose to lift up their spirits.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
mean,
it
it
was
would have been.
still mind control.
Yes. As always, there's always some kind of mind
Mind
control
control.
going on. I
Yeah,
mean, even
because it,
back in those days,
yeah,
things had to be controlled, and you know, I mean,
because
it's
at the time of Jesus's alleged birth, right? First of all, they
mhm,
say, "Oh, there's evidence, right? There's a guy named Yeshua, right? Yeshua. First of all, that's a common name, and his father was Joseph, and his mother was Mary. Well, those were also common names. If you could do like a Google search for somebody, Yeshua, whose father was Joseph, mother was Mary, probably find at least 10,000 of them. So that's not evidence of anything. That's just like Joseph Atwell says. The fact that my neighbor has a pet duck named Donald doesn't prove the
mhm,
existence of Donald Duck as a real person, right?
that's right.
So and at the time where he was alleged to have been born, there were like at least 50 historians living in Israel at that time, and historians back then were the journalists of their day. So they would have like spread the information on. They would have convened with other historians, and they would have written about it. But the fact that only Josephus, who was a Roman Jew, wrote
Hmm.
about it, and I've seen the original. And it's written in a different hand, and it's two lines. So the so-called evidence for the existence of Jesus is like very, very tenuous.
Yeah, yeah. And did he really live in that time period? Like I listened to the thing today, and they were trying to put some of this stuff together, and they were saying, well, he was born a lot long or earlier than we believe him to be born, and if he was, and if he did die, he didn't die at age 33. That's just a made up
So,
number. He might have lived, a lot longer than
mhm.
that,
And
and
also,
so forth, so on.
if his father was a real god, his real father was a real god, then A, why did he send him to that particular location in that particular time? And B, why would he let him get executed in one of the most horrific and painful methods known to man, which
Yeah.
is crucifixion? Like,
Yes.
Oh yeah.
why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why
It's
would you?
also it's a story circled around symbolism, around the story about symbolism, and over and over and over, and repeating the same message over and over and over, and it's just for the reader to figure that out.
And
That's what it was.
again, the fact that he was executed, that ties in with the ghetto culture because just like today, the only people who get executed are the poor who don't
Yes,
have good lawyers, right?
that's right.
Because the super rich, they never get executed, no matter what they do. I
Yeah.
mean, you got presidents that have murdered millions of people, and
Hmm.
they never face the death penalty.
That's right. That's right. And if they do, something happens to them, and then they disappear, and we never see them again, and they just mysteriously die out of nowhere. And you know,
Yeah,
they went to
uh,
prison for 2 days, and they ended up dying. Isn't that
yeah.
a shame?
Or as that
Maybe.
commenter said, it's all about the money. It's all about who's paying for the research. And
Hmm.
they say follow the science. Well, guess what? The science follows the money. Uh,
That's right.
it's whoever's paying for it. Like, back in, let's say, the 1700s, most scientists were like rich men who had the luxury of time and curiosity, who could afford like all
Hmm.
these expensive and pieces of equipment, and who had like assistants that they could rely on to do experiments with things like the vacuum or various chemicals and stuff. So no, without funding, you are not a scientist.
That's that's right, and that's
And
how
there's
people.
also orthodoxy, where okay, because all science is cumulative, you can't negate something that was made, some discovery that was made, let's say 50 years ago by a famous scientist or archaeologist or whatever, that goes against it because in the meantime he's gotten a Nobel Peace Prize. What, he's going to have to give that back? Give back all that government funding because your research proves that he's a quack? You know.
Oh
I
yeah.
got something. I got something that I just remembered. Jesus is a descendant of David through Joseph,
Hmm.
but Jesus' father is God, not Joseph.
Hmm.
There's not a there's a weird correlation going on here. They're establishing precedent. They're establishing Jesus as royalty through different ways, and the three wise men giving gifts.
Mhm.
Um, and also he's descendant of Joseph through his adoptive father. So
And
genetically,
also,
yeah, weird.
yeah, also the incident at the temple where at the age of 13,
Oh yeah,
he's educating like all these Pharisees, Sadducees in the temple, and everybody's like amazed, like where did he come up with all this knowledge? So yeah, it goes to show that this is a fictitious story. It could not have happened that way, and it's also designed to, set the precedence for like unwanted pregnancy out of wedlock. Like,
hmm
okay, well, this woman got pregnant, even though she claims to never have had a man, but there's a precedent, and it's in the Bible,
hmm
right? And the Bible's true because the Bible says it's true.
Yep. It says it because it says it, and you better have faith and believe in it because that's what it is.
Yeah,
Don't question the religion and don't
yeah,
question
yeah.
the Bible because it was wrote by the hand of God.
Yeah,
And
and if you question
and
it, if you use your brain, if you use your God-given brain, you're committing a sin. It's like what? And first of all, and second of all, why would God, who created all man and all life and everything, why would He pick a favor, right?
yeah, yeah,
Why?
yeah. It's seen that's the thing. It's I think it's a code that's been put in there for us to study. And maybe there's more to it.
There
It's
is.
in the story, and we need to do the work to figure it
Hmm.
out.
Yeah,
Oh,
And
there's
there are
hidden.
so many codes, so much to study. It's
Hmm.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
but you can't take it as just the basic words telling the story because like you said, once you start digging into it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But once you
Hmm.
start seeing the relationship of why did they have to put why why can't they remember how many wise men there were, but they can remember what they were bringing?
Hmm.
Just they can remember Jesus's age, as being 33, but they can't remember what happened between 12 and 30.
or even
Right?
the number of the of apostles. Okay, that's settled at 12. But what about the
Yeah,
disciples?
yeah.
They say that there were 88. Well, there's also 88 books of the Bible, right? Or 66. So it depends on which Bible you use. So
Yeah,
it's
and why does one Bible have the King James have 66 and then
mhm.
other ones have 80 something, or another 20 added to
When
it,
you have
it's like
88 keys on a piano. So
so it's just it's very frustrating. But I hope everybody is happy with this. I think they're Scotty Boy said it all. We rock. There we go. But
thank
anyway,
you.
we should round this up, and people are going to head over to Max Vision Remote View class. I put a few links in there, and I hope you learned something. And if you didn't learn anything, maybe you're going to question something and go look it up for yourself because
Yeah.
who are we to tell you what the facts are? You need to figure
Mhm.
them out for yourself. We're just giving you the breadcrumb trail to start on that nice journey. um, and that's what it's all about. So next week we can come back and we're going to talk more, and we're going to talk about other things, all having to do with Christmas and why is it so much so. What is up? Maybe next week we'll do more of the 25th and how that all correlates with, Santa. What do you mean, Santa? See, there you go. I mean, there's a whole show right there.
It's all about, it's what I call it the fourth quarter earnings holiday
Yes. Is there more to this?
in the
3 days
retail
in,
sector. Yeah.
the equinox, the 25th, so and so's birthday, the end and the beginning of the new year. What is going on there? Maybe we should study
Here
that a
in
little bit more.
Here in Central Europe, almost every building, even public buildings, have like the K plus A M plus B on it and the year. And that means that a priest visited that house and blessed it around Christmas time, where they go around like with the Christmas carolers and they bless the houses, right? And you're supposed to give them like some baksheesh, like €1 or whatever. But when they come ringing my doorbell, I just pretend I'm not home because I don't have the patience to stand there. I can't stand for that long anyway, and have them singing some stupid songs that I've heard a million times.
It is what it is.
Mhm.
All right. Well, Lucky, any last words?
No, I have a wonderful week. I don't know.
You gonna have a live show this week?
Oh no, I had one with Courtney yesterday. This is with you, so
Well,
that
I know
fills
you
my
were saying
quota.
you're gonna do a live show once a week. I was like, okay.
No, I filled my quota. I
You
have
filled
one
it?
now, and I have
Okay.
one yesterday. I filled my
Okay.
quota.
You're a good man.
Plans
Good man.
plans always change. There's always excuses for everything.
There you go.
Mhm.
But hey, 2 shows is good. Well, with that, remember everybody, don't forget Tuesday night, Native American Myths and Legends with the one and only David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers, right here. And who knows, we'll have a few shorts here and there along the way, and then back on Saturday night. So with that, remember, Max Vision's up next. Go over there, check them out, participate in the class. Link is in the chat, so do that. Remember, be the frequency you want to receive, everybody, because 'tis the season.
Mhm.